the level of control, the climate of fear seems to be present everywhere.
Former federal scientist Steve Campana describing the mood among his former colleagues. Campana echoed the message from protesters this week. They say they're being muzzled by obstructionist government policies, victims of reams of red tape, and a chill they claim has spread through their ranks. The government says it's not sure what the fuss is about.
I encourage our scientists to talk about their work.
So the question for the panel today, does the issue have any traction with voters? Do Canadians care? Should they? We're back with round two of the Sunday Scrum. Martin Patrick Quinn is in Montreal. John Ibbotson is in Ottawa, along with our Julie Van Dusen. So Julie, set this up for us. What's going on here?
Well, I went to a rally a couple of days ago that was billed as kind of a protest by scientists about the fact that they can't speak about their work. Now, at that rally, it was mostly union representatives. I couldn't find any active scientists, but I was told it was because the scientists are too afraid to speak. Now, Steve Campana, who was a scientist and moved up to, where did he go? Iceland, I guess, says this is the case and that scientists are fed up. Now, it's not the first time we've heard this. A couple of years ago, there was a protest on Parliament Hill with a lot of scientists, but they weren't active federal scientists. They were the friends of the scientists who work in academia and so on. It all boils down to the fact that just put your little memory hat on and think about the last time you heard a federal scientist talking about their work. I mean, it's as rare as hen's teeth. And the times they stop them, it is so laughable. You know, the poor guy who did research on snow and all the characteristics of snow, you know, the NASA scientist who co-authored the report with them is the guy that ended up speaking, not the Canadian scientist who was, you know, sitting in a snowbank. He couldn't talk about it. You know, so when they do let them out to speak, they have babysitters, handlers who watch every word. So I don't think it's a made-up story. Is it something that when people go to the voting booth and say, you know, I'm fed up with silencing of the scientists? I don't know. They're probably patting the family benefits check in their pocket. I don't know if they're thinking about scientists.
Marty, what do you think is the motivation, at least, behind this?
Well, I mean, look, I think Julie's right. I don't think it's necessarily a ballot box issue. I think that said, though, I believe the vast majority of Canadians do sort of like, you know, worrying about muzzling of scientists in Canada. That said, look, Stephen, the first past the post system in Canada is such that we can pinpoint, governments can pinpoint and target voter bases, and nobody does that better than Stephen Harper. And I think there's a realization within the Conservative Party that, look, the scientists, we've already lost that vote. It doesn't matter. They're not part of our thing. And indeed, going even further, if we scapegoat them, it's not going to hurt us in the least. So, you know, I don't think it hurts the governing party at all, for sure.
What do you think, John?
Well, I'm going to be wildly unpopular here and spend the rest of my day responding to angry emails and tweets. I'm with the government on this. I don't think the scientists have much of a case. Any place you work for has copyright on your material. I work at the Globe and Mail. The Globe and Mail has copyright on my material. I don't go around using Globe and Mail material without the Globe's permission. I'm here today because the Globe consents to have me here. Any company that you work for in the private sector, the stuff that you do for that company belongs to the company. And the stuff that you do for the government, it belongs to the government. We've always had a much more closed system here. I wrote a book some years ago. I wrote a book some years ago called Open and Shut about why the American system is so wide open and why the Canadian system is so shut. And it was shut long before the Conservatives came to power. And I agree the Conservatives are incredible control freaks and they're autocratic and they're secretive and all those sorts of things. But I don't think that scientists have a right to work all day and then decide what they're going to do with their material at the end of the day without first consulting the government. And the government, the employer, has every right to say, keep it in your drawer, please.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is, you know, some research is interesting. It's not that controversial. If you listen to Steve Campana, he says, you know, I did this research on the age of lobsters and shrimp, which has an impact on the fishery. You pay these people to do this stuff. Some of it is interesting. Some of it's quirky. Of course, you know, if it's controversial and has something to do with something the government doesn't want to talk about, I guess we get that. But there must be numerous topics that are of interest to Canadians. people like the science guy. They like that stuff. They want to hear what people have discovered.
And isn't it fair to make the argument?
We've all paid for it, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I was going to ask you, Marty. You know, I mean, they're doing this research. Maybe I just want to know. I don't know how I feel about it. I just want to know about it. Why can't I, as a taxpayer, just know about it?
Well, exactly, and that's where I think it differs a little bit from the private sector. It belongs to all of us, and you know, whether or not you can get out and shout about it on a national podium or whatnot, that's up for debate. But you know, wrapping red tape around these people isn't necessarily the best thing to do, I don't think.
And John, strategy-wise, is it a smart thing though to do, because it doesn't play into that kind of almost controlling feeling that some people have about the government?
Well, look, if the government gets defeated, one of the reasons it's going to get defeated is that all-controlling aspect to it, the secretiveness of it, the threat to parliamentary democracy that some people allege. I don't buy that threat, by the way, but again, I'm highly contrarian on this particular argument. But I do agree that the Conservative brand, the Harper brand, after a decade, is damaged because of the control freakish tendencies, as critics allege, of the government. So yes, they could hurt them. But on the other hand, I'm going to stick to my guns on this. You work for the government owns the stuff, the government decides what to do with it, so there.
I think it's cumulative. I mean, if you look back at, say, the Chrétien government, Shawinigan, okay, that's interesting. Then you go on to the binder scandal with Jane Stewart and the billion-dollar boondoggle. But whammo, up comes the sponsorship scandal, and after a while, you carry a lot of baggage around, and people start to see a pattern. And that could influence them. It's not the scientists, okay, it's the fact that they see perhaps a controlling nature on a lot of different issues, and they just say, enough is enough. It depends what motivates people in the voting booth.
All right, before we go, I just gotta, because I want to talk about Rachel Notley. You mentioned baggage, Julie Van Dusen. Well, Rachel Notley is not bringing some baggage with her into her caucus. She has decided, as we know, to kick out Deborah Drever. She was an MLA that was elected in a Calgary riding. She was suspended from caucus for this Instagram post, I think that we're going to show you. Of course, it wasn't her first transgression. There it is. It has Jim Prentice and the new interim leader there. People saying that there's a little homophobic thing at the bottom of that. So she's kicked out of that. Wow. Marty, what do you make for Rachel Notley's first day with something like that?
First of all, every day I get to work, I turn on my computer, and I'm astonished by the amount of stuff that people post on their own that's self-incriminating. It's absolutely incredible, and it's a lack of judgment on her part. That said, it's an early government. This is an Alberta that has a government that has a sense of entitlement to it, for decades now with the Conservatives, to the point where Alison Redford in the $42,000 plane ride, and flying her daughter around, et cetera, et cetera. I think those are far worse transactions than something on an Instagram thing like this. I would venture to say that Alberta voters would actually be thrilled to have this kind of problems rather than the old problems.
Julie, what do you make of the fact that it's a stripped-down cabinet, just 11 cabinet ministers with many different portfolios, much fewer than Jim Prentice's 19. 11 cabinet ministers in a province of 4 million people. That sounds like there are going to be a small group of people that are going to be very busy.
Well, they may have to lean on the bureaucracy more, but, initially a lot of it is about optics. When Jean Chrétien came in, it was all about, I'm different than the Gucci shoes, right? Here I am in my jean shirt, and we only saw that once on a poster, but it's a lot about optics. So she's saying, I'm not lavish, I'm here to govern, but, you're not going to see a lot of chauffeurs hanging around. So I'm opening my swearing in to families, and you can have ice cream. This is a down-to-earth approach to things, and, don't expect a lot of high flyers here.
What do you expect to see in the first few days of this new government, John?
Oh, it's going to be absolutely crucial. I'd give it more than a few days. I'd give it a couple of months. But look, the real question is Rachel Notley going to be Roy Romano / Gary Dewar, or is she going to be Bob Rae? Bob Rae couldn't control his caucus. There were serial scandals and embarrassments. Thomas Mulcair, on the other hand, has taken a Quebec caucus that was equally green, nurtured it, disciplined it, kept it in line. So will Rachel Notley do the Thomas Mulcair shtick and control the caucus and educate it and mother it and get it into shape? Or will she let it run amok the way Bob Rae did? Similarly, you only need, look, I've covered a fair share of governments, you only need 3 ministers. Finance, Treasury Board, industry, you need 3 good ministers, the rest of the bureaucracy can handle. So will she cultivate a strong cabinet? Will she be socially compassionate but fiscally conservative and pragmatic, such as Saskatchewan and Manitoba NDP governments have been? Or will she run around all over the place making disastrous decisions the way Bob Rae did in his first year? That's the question. Bob Rae or Roy Romanow, which is she? And everything, absolutely everything depends on it.